what is your expectation on this deliberative polling?
My expectation is that people will live with a clear opinion on each of the different paths that can be taken to deal with the two laws that we are here discussing. But also I believe that overall we might achieve a path which comes out of consensus, of deliberation between the people here. And so I believe that we will have results in the end, for sure. People will know more what they want, and also they will be able to tell the different professional bodies, the government, etc., what is their opinion. And so this is what this is about, it's opinions.
And then since, is there any similar media monitoring ordinance in Portugal as well?
Yes, in Europe you have both regulatory bodies. All the countries do have regulatory bodies of some sorts, either for the broadcasting or for the written press. But in many countries, I would argue the majority of European countries, you have either one regulatory body that deals with the two different dimensions of the press, or two different regulatory bodies, each one for press or written press or broadcasting. So, and that happens, but it can only happen if at the same time you have another dimension covered, which is the rights of journalists in the process. So it's about how do you defend journalists, how do you defend their work, and how you look at a society where journalism is considered of importance. It's not just a profession like any other. It's a profession that matters because it's the ground where power relations are defined. And so without a regulatory body and without at the same time protection of journalists in terms of laws, you cannot have, I believe, you cannot have a good job done, both in terms of building people's opinions and allowing the different stakeholders in the process to debate and discuss issues. So at least that's my view.
And since Macau is Portuguese home, so do you think publishing ordinance and broadcasting ordinance in Macau is very similar to that of Portugal?
At the time where it was implemented, both laws had a clear mark of the juridical institutional system of Portugal. So in that moment, yes, they were quite similar. In the meantime, Portugal has evolved, Macau has evolved. There are links between the two places, but it's really up to Macau to decide if within a given frame from departure, which is the existence of these two laws, how do you want to deal with the next step? So everything is open, everything can be discussed. There are no, I would say, there are no green paths that you have to follow as an obligation. It's a matter of discussing and feeling which one is the right one for Macau. If we would have a similar discussion in Portugal, probably we would, even with a clear frame like ours today, we will still be discussing because people's lives don't end in an abrupt moment. So we are always building our future. We are always discussing where we want to go, which is the next step. Discussing laws here in Macau is to discuss where do you want to go? What is the future that you want to have? So it's clearly marked in the beginning by a view from the Portuguese juridical system, but there are open paths. So
is there any similar discussion like deliberative polling held in Portugal before?
No, because what we have had have been discussions within the professional union in terms of journalists, and discussions among different public opinion leaders, be them journalists or not, in the process. And there was a huge discussion when the new regulatory statute for the journalists was implemented, before, There were several months of discussions in the public opinion, at the same time in Parliament. So there was discussion, and when the journalists are able to themselves make the discussion and are open to have other people's ideas in the process, it gives a wider perspective, and so that's also useful in the process. But we didn't have an implementation of a deliberative pool in Portugal at the time. But maybe here it does make sense because, let me put it this way, after 20 years, more or less, of having a law, of having changed the government of Macau from a region which had a Portuguese governor and the handover to China, etc. All those changes in the meantime. Probably it makes sense because there hasn't been discussion during the last few years. And so if you want really to regain momentum in the discussion, this is the kind of approach that you should follow. If the discussion had been ongoing during the last few years, probably you wouldn't have needed a deliberative pool. If journalists had themselves decided to bring the discussion into public, probably you wouldn't have needed to have a deliberative pool in the process.
Thank you very much for your time.
You know that in Portugal it's 8 hours less, so that's why I'm answering slowly because I'm still trying to adjust. So if I don't succeed in having the rhythm that you would like me to have,
it's very good.
because
It's very good. Very good. So you just arrived